And we're back. Welcome, welcome. I actually don't know what episode we are
Episode
on.
19.
Episode 19. We are myself and Kunal here in the house today. Unfortunately, we are missing our best half or third, and he'll be back soon. We do have some really happy news that we want to share because we feel really excited right now. So I'm going to let Kunal share this with you guys.
Yeah, no one's pregnant. Basically, uh, on I think it was 2 days ago, Nathan shared like a little email that he got about the podcast. Said we're basically 20th in Ireland and 21st in France. So shout out to all our Irish and French listeners. We love you all. We will do a live show one day when we're back, when we can travel around, etc. And 31st, no, 35th in the United Kingdom. Which is still this is pretty good because number one, we don't have any intro music, we don't have anything like that. We literally just shoot the shit, talk, and that's pretty much it. So I think that's really, really cool. By the way, and why are we not like number one in Sweden? Like you should be drumming that up right now.
I'm going to start talking this up, I'm going to definitely start sharing this with everyone.
Yeah, I want all the Swedish listeners.
I would like
I
to
want to
know.
be top 5.
Yeah, I'm going to work on it. I'm going to
All right.
definitely work on it. So,
Good
but we
luck.
want to say thank you. It's very exciting. I mean, we are just 3 people showing up and trying to keep it real every week. So that's what we're going to do today as well. We're going to keep it really real. And now, what are we going to talk about?
Stress and burnout. These are huge topics, in my opinion. Like, I think all of us have experienced some sort of symptom. I know clients experiencing that right now. A lot of people think, working from home is all dandy and it's all great. But I think a lot of people now realizing actually, there's still added pressure and added stress from actually working from home. And I think sometimes, looking back on it, for most people, that actually take going into the city, going into central, for that specific time frame. You normally have like, okay, it's 9 to 5, 9 to 6, 9 to 7. Right now, a lot of people are doing 9 to 9, or they're doing 8 to 8, or they're doing whatever time frame. And, obviously we wanted to talk about stress and burnout. What's been your experiences of stress and burnout yourself? Like, what's the worst case that you've had so far?
I mean, my absolute worst case, I think I touched on it last week or the week before, was when we talked about, it was last week, the importance of sleep, because I was starting to experience some really intense short-term memory loss. I could not hold the conversation. I just felt like I wasn't myself. So that was me then obviously working about 16 hours today in the gym floor and not having daylight. I mean, it probably would have been at the back end of a diet and just a really pressured workplace. And at that point, I was hitting the wall quite quickly, and I had to make a change. So that was when I really understood what it felt like, but I wasn't quite at the wall yet, because I could just about grab myself back and start working on what I needed to work on to avoid burning out. But I mean, even now, if we're looking at transitioning into doing online stuff, you can always work,
Yep.
literally. And I found myself actually the past couple of months only working because you're in somewhat restriction lockdown. Even though I'm not in restriction lockdown right now, you still we obey to the regulations of like, or the what's the word, well, they don't want you to be socializing, so there are restrictions, but it's like you're not locked up in your home basically. So I don't really see a lot of people, and I work a lot, so I've really felt it. And the way that I know it's coming on, it's when I stop doing the things, like the little things. Like I always sing, so when I stop singing, I know that I'm heading towards the wrong direction. There's literally like like when I start justifying not going for that walk that I normally go on, I know that I'm heading in the wrong direction because I'm just in that wheel of keep going, and I don't see that I'm there. But then when I see it, I'm going like, cool, I got to change that because I know I'm heading to a direction where actually I don't enjoy what I'm doing. I don't think it's fun. I question myself. So the spiral goes that way. So it's very important for me to realize and then go, right, now you need to go and have some fun. That's kind of the more, when I feel that I'm going that way, I have to go and have fun. For me, that's like playtime, and it usually makes me bounce back into a good place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's like a 3R approach towards like burnout. So recognize, like reverse, and then like resilience towards it, right?
yeah,
So I think a lot of people sometimes don't recognize it. That's the whole issue, right? With burnout, typically. So, you just kind of, you just keep spinning the wheel over and over and over again. And you're just thinking, okay, I've kept spinning the wheel, but like you don't know the signs of burnout. A lot of people don't know the signs of burnout unless they really like collapse. But reality is, like, for example, you just said there, and it's actually really good because a lot of people do this, especially if you think about your fitness journey, where they start justifying why they couldn't do certain things, but they want to do it. It's one of those things where, like, actually, I couldn't do my steps in because I had a meeting, I have this going on, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the biggest thing you said is actually just recognize your burnout, because ultimately, if you don't recognize it, it's gonna get worse. um and I feel like, for me personally, like my experience with burnout, probably 2018, 2019, where I felt like I was just 100 miles per hour. I was doing online, like high capacity, and then I was doing PT at the same time. I literally was working 7 days a week, and I probably had, like, looking back on it, my Sunday was literally between 8 till 3 o'clock still working. So I wouldn't actually have any off period. And then even that, I'm still trying to get ready for Monday on a Sunday again. So just for the online, and it was just, and again, I'd have PT again on Monday. So it would just literally be that, like, wheel of fortune. Luckily back then, like, you could just go on away on holiday. And I think that would solve a lot of things purely because it's a different environment. But I remember I had to be very, like, I realized that I can't carry on like this. And if I do, I'll burn out and I'll hate this game. And the thing is, I love, obviously, this transformation game. I just love generally coaching, but I realized, like, that would be a quick way out of just, I'm done with this and I can't do this at all. So even for me, like, the way I combat sometimes stress and burnout, mainly stress, would be doing things that I love. So away from just, like, I know I love coaching, but I love also listening to a podcast, reading a book, going for walks, right? And just doing something completely away from essentially fitness. And I feel like that's helped me a lot over the last, like, 2 years. I know, speaking to, like, Nate as well, and we were discussing a lot about this. And I remember when we were in America, me and him together, I would say, let's listen to a podcast here. It's not even about fitness. And then since then, he's listened to the same podcast over, and that's one of his favorite podcasts. Because I'm like, yeah, this is what I typically tend to do. I just don't listen to a fitness podcast anymore. If I did, I would get, my mind would be in overdrive. And how do you feel the same way about, like, let's say, work? Sometimes it's like, you want to learn that, but you're like, okay, I need to have the right time for it. I can't afford to just learn it on a Wednesday night because I'll be all over the place.
yeah, 100%. I mean, it's very dependent on what's going on in the week and how long you've been in this wheel. Because I do think there are time to push and time to back off.
Yep.
And that's where, like, I last weekend I actually worked the whole weekend, and I felt it on the Monday. I felt like, man, I haven't rested. So I know that this weekend I can't do the same thing, because I know that there's only so much you can push. But so it is very time dependent on how much you take on. Um, I don't listen to enough podcasts for that reason, that I feel like I don't have the capacity to even take it in, and then actually really enjoy listening to it, because it just keeps having my business mind spinning. And so there's definitely times where, if I go on holiday, same thing, like, it's so nice to just, like, then you have it, you're there, you're open, like, you are absorbing, and you're actually inspired. Whereas if you just do it for the sake of it,
Yep.
I find that you don't actually take it in. So I
It's
think,
so
yeah,
true.
you need to be in a good place where you can actually absorb the information, and where you enjoy to absorb it, not to feel like you, like, force feed your information because you should learn new things all the time. And so, yeah, I agree. It depends. It really depends.
Yeah, 100%. In terms of, obviously, what's your experience has been like with clients recently? And I feel like I say recently because, don't get me wrong, stress and burnout's always been there before, right? I remember, even a couple of years ago, let's say pre-COVID, everyone was like, I'm going to leave my corporate job, it's too much, etc., etc. And I feel like the corporate job is still a problem even to this day. And don't get me wrong, I know it pays the bills, etc. I was having a conversation with this lady a couple of days ago as well. I said the same thing. I said the same thing to her, which was like, ultimately, if that job fires you tomorrow, they don't care about you, but you got to look after yourself. And a lot of people were working like, close to 12, 14 hours a day recently. So companies are just like, look, you're at home, you can work. And I've heard, like, I remember my own cousin had the same situation. He goes, yeah, they just text you at like 7, and then, they're just saying, hey, can you just log on and do some work? And I'm like, at 7 o'clock in the evening. How do you deal with it? So, like, have you had a similar situations and similar cases with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the majority of the people having transitioned to working in front of their laptops. Um, and yeah, what do you really do? This is what we're probably going to go in and talk about, is like having boundaries and
Yeah.
actually communicating those boundaries. Uh, because as you say, no one really cares about you. They just want you to do the job. And that's a harsh reality. But if you work for a corporation, it's very rarely that they have the best of your health interest. And here I'm actually talking purely about health,
Yeah.
because it will relate to, like, if you're super stressed, it will have a negative effect on your body composition and how easy it is for you to lose the weight you're trying to lose and build muscle that you're trying to build, because we can only cope with so much stress at one time. But in the world of corporation, they don't really care about that. They care about the results and the income, or like the actual products of your work. So it is hard. It's a hard conversation to have with yourself as well, because many people aspire to grow in the ladder, or climb the ladder, as you say.
Mhm.
Um, but I find, actually don't work with many people in corporation. I work with many people who are entrepreneurs actually and do their own thing. Um, but it's the same thing there. I mean, I know that because I still have a hard time sometimes to have boundaries as well. Um, so it is really that understanding why we put boundaries in, and it's so that you can be a better performer essentially, because we cannot perform 100% 24 hours of the day. So looking at what does it actually mean for you, what will it give you to have these boundaries, because it will give you more energy, it will give you more fulfillment, it will give you more motivation, and of course it will give you more time to have a life that you might want to have outside. um, Whether or not you're single or you're married or you have kids, like there's still going to be a life that you will want to live outside of what you do for a living. And I think that is the thing. A lot of people, I have this conversation with a lot of people, basically, who are you when you're not working?
Yeah.
And
What's
people
your
don't know.
identity, right?
People don't know, because people identify as what they do for a living. And this is, I think, is why they struggle to also put boundaries in, because maybe they haven't allowed themselves to explore that self outside the job, because they've been sucked into it, and there's been pressure of becoming something. Obviously we have norms within the work, like you have the corporate mindset if you work for a corporation, but it doesn't mean that you are that person. You just might have to get into the mode of corporation. But I think understanding that you are not that corporation, and you can be in that corporation and still be yourself. Now I'm just like derailing to a whole different like topic really. But I think once you have that sort of base, you can start putting boundaries in. You can actually, you can see like why you need to have those boundaries. I had a conversation with a client yesterday, and yeah, she's awesome. She's like, Nana, 6 o'clock, I don't answer. I will maybe give them a one liner if I think that it's needed, but they can't expect me
Yeah.
because I finish work, you know. And she's single, she lives on her own. Like she might not even have better things to do than working, but that doesn't make it any less better. She might enjoy reading a book or doing her yoga, right? So that shouldn't be classified as not important, because it's super important. But I think you need to get to that. You need to actually absorb that and go, my time is actually super important, and I can't just give it away so easily all the time.
Yeah.
That's
I
just
100% agree with, like, the boundaries you have, because I think most people don't put boundaries. That's one of the biggest thing. So first thing I want most people to do, actually, when you listen to this podcast today, And if you're feeling stressed and burnt out, and majority of you are right now because you haven't had a holiday in nearly 18 months or whatever, and on top of that, you know, we've heard the news of lockdown. We're going to talk about that potentially towards the end of this pod. But basically, I've actually coached a lot of people who either entrepreneurs as well as that. Entrepreneurs are actually a lot better with this, in my opinion, because I think they are a lot more self-aware now of like, look, I need to look after myself so I can look after my business, quote unquote. Whereas I think with the corporate side of things, it's very much like you mentioned, I want to climb up a ladder. I need to show that I am mentally, I can take anything I possibly can. But in reality, they're like crumbling inside, right? They're like, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. Like I've seen it so many times in my check-ins, and I always mention it. I said, so what would happen if you didn't do the work like at 9 o'clock in the evening? Would you get fired the next day? Because they wouldn't fire you because you're like, I can't do any work. So I think sometimes, I don't know if it's the corporate side of the issue, or it's mainly they're just putting extra layer of stress to themselves.
I think society as a whole, because
Mm,
we are conditioned to be the best. You know, you should have the best grade in class, and you should graduate number one. Like there's always the strive to be the best, and therefore even time then becomes a commodity where it's like I can give most of my time. So I'm the best at giving time. It doesn't make you a better worker. It just makes you, I guess, a better hustler. Like you just give it
yeah, a
away.
better competitor, right? Like in that moment.
It's
We can
it,
actually talk about that. We can actually
it's,
go into that, like competition from a young age.
hmm,
That even cause like burnout. Like think about it, right? I know this from the Asian side of things, Asian communities, where you're typically graded like as a person. If your grades are not great, you're judged like crazy
yeah.
from a very very young age.
And
And
then
you know,
you'll hear it like, oh, but your cousin,
yeah,
that,
exactly, yeah,
yeah, right. So you're conditioned to have that mindset as a very young person. All of your values and limitations that they come from a very young age, and unfortunately, they're mostly given to us. Um, so yeah, how have you worked around that, being from an Asian culture?
truth be told, I never gave a crap. It's weird because I was always like the person who got into sports, right? Like it was is already the norm. I mean, against the norm. So I never cared about like what was going on. But I was on Clubhouse the other day, and it was with a bunch of Asians who were discussing basically cultural competition. I think a week ago, but even yesterday they were discussing this little called cultural competition, and I was like, this is quite interesting. And they were talking about like, was it you or was it your parents who forced that competition on you? And I look back on it, for me, it was always like I didn't like the competition that I got from them regarding things that I didn't like. But obviously, kids are not as aware of that. They just like, okay, my mom's telling me I need to get A in maths. I'm gonna go and get A in maths if it's possible. So I guess they compare it from that side of things. And then it happens also when they get older. So what happens is they start looking at everyone else. This person works for the big four. This person does this person does that. I need to go and do the exact same thing. And then what happens is they hit like mid-30s and they're like, I hate what I do. But they've never explored what they really want to do from a young age. Whereas I personally, I went to explore what I wanted to do from an age of like 12, 13. And I was like, I'm always going to be in the sports field, or I'm going to be in the fitness industry regardless. It's on my kind of boat to get it done. Otherwise, I can only blame myself. I can't blame my skin color, my genetics, or anything like that. It's on me basically.
Yeah,
So for me, it was mainly like I didn't care enough for if someone said to me like this person got that grade, that person got that grade, because it was 1 year in, 1 year out, simple as that. Even now, I think I'm still exactly the same. It doesn't really affect me like that, but I can see why, you know, when I speak to a lot of people, especially Asians, they've gone through that period of like from a young age, they've just had it bombarded on them that they need to be this person, this identity, but they've never had to explore that identity themselves,
yeah.
right? How was it for you like growing up? Was it like, obviously it must have been slightly different for you, but um what was that situation like?
Um, I think, well, not at all the same.
Hmm.
But for
I would
me,
have been shocked, by the way, if you said it was exactly the
it was actually
same.
the same, man.
Yeah, I would have
No,
been super super
no,
shocked.
it really wasn't. But I think for me, it was a different scenario. I was a very good student because I was seeking validation. I wanted to be told that I was good. So I became a good student because of that, because I urged for that, because I didn't necessarily get that like verbally. So for me, it was the path of like, I'm going to be really good at studying, because then I'll get like, oh, you're so clever, you're so smart, look at you, you're going to be great. But then something happened. I don't actually know what happened, but I turned into become this like free spirited, like worldly creature that just has done my own thing always. I actually after A levels, maybe it
College.
is
Yeah.
A levels, I went to study law straight after, but then I ended up quitting. I finished the course. It was like an introduction course, and then I ended up having a bachelor in music. And it was like I was like the hope in the family to get a good education. And then I was like, no, I'm gonna move to London. I'm gonna make music.
Yeah.
And then from there, I've done a few big world travels, which has been super spontaneous and not at all planned and all on my own. So I don't know where I got that from. Maybe that's also a way of proving my independence. I think that's part of it as well, proving my independence. Either for myself or for the people that I love. I don't know, but it just turned out to be that way, and how I expressed myself in life. So it's interesting. I don't know where it came from, but I definitely was seeking validation when I was young, as in I wanted to be told that I was good. I wanted to feel good enough. And then it turned into I can make whatever I want, and I don't need anyone to tell me I'm good. So I don't know. I was never told I had to be something. That's it. I was never told that I should have been something. When I started study law, they were super proud, and they were really showing how proud they were. But then, and also when I said, hey, Dad, I'm not going to do law anymore, I'm going to go and become a hippie. Basically, that's what I said. And he was like, no, you're not. And I was like, I really am, but I paid for it myself. I've never had help or anything. So,
Yeah.
I made those decisions, but it was hard. Like that was hard, because then I felt like the letdown. I felt like I was doing something wrong. Don't even know where we came from this, but so I don't really know where it came from, but I did not have the same, neither of my parents have a university degree, and my dad just didn't really believe in it. So he was like, you can do whatever you want. He's been a bit of an entrepreneur his life as well, so maybe that's where it's coming from as well. But yeah.
Yes, it's definitely interesting because obviously, like, the way we started is that whole conversation about that was basically, going from like a young age, is it already stemmed in from you? Like, obviously, different cultures are different, right? But generally, with school, it's a very competitive thing, right? So, if let's say parents start talking to each other, oh, what grade did your kid get? What do they do here, etc. It just becomes like this person does this, we got to follow that, we got to follow the herd essentially. And then from there you're not taught to be essentially free spirited. How many kids are really free spirited to this day? I don't know too many. Like I've met like my cousins, etc., little nephews. Not None of them are like that free spirited. It's because I guess you're in that environment, right, where you've got to be competitive. And I like competition myself, don't get me wrong. I'm very competitive probably now than I've ever been in my life. Probably unless I'm playing a sport, simple as that. Before, like, I don't think I was competitive growing up like that. But in terms of like obviously going back into the work environment for, let's say, clients right now who are listening to this, obviously setting boundaries is one. What's another thing that they could do when it comes down to obviously preventing burnout?
Have a hobby.
Yeah.
Like you need to have fun. Fun is the greatest balance of stress. You can't be stressed when you're having fun, basically. Like if you have something you enjoy doing, it can be anything from knitting, from playing chess. It could be so simple as doing some painting or drawing or even playing piano. Like it can be whatever. It's so subjective. But giving yourself that time and actually having a making, it's about making time. You have to make time for fun, because it's going to balance your life, and you're actually going to feel like you get so much more from it.
Yeah.
That would be my number one tip. Like, and I say that to everyone, like, get a hobby. If you don't have one, try different things. When I left working for my old workplace, and I was super kind of, who am I? Because I'd been working there for 3 years and I was conditioned to be this person. And my identity was basically, I am this workplace, because I was there 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. I was there. So my 2019 was a quest of trying new things. And I know now, of course, we're in COVID and you might be a bit restricted, but it doesn't restrict you from trying new things. You just have to be a little bit more inventive of how you're going to seek those new things. And we know that it's going to come to an end. And even then, you have more opportunities. You can do it more in social environments. But I would just say, having fun is the greatest balance of stress. That and sleep, but like actually to feel more fulfillment, definitely have fun.
Yeah, that is literally like finding your balance in life, right? That's what it is. Like, when we talk about like work-life balance, that's what we're kind of striving for effectively. Like, I think, yeah, the people who do really well outside of like work is when they've got hobbies. And I think a lot of people now have taken up, like, for example, coaching is one, right? People just come into us and they're like, I want to get transformed, because that's their kind of now quote unquote hobby, or something that they want to challenge themselves on. Obviously with the whole case of COVID being around, they can't do much. And if we can say, go do a new course, but then it's like another 3 hours on screen time, and you're just like, I want to avoid the laptop, for example. So it could be anything. I think even for me, I'm a big fan of like audibles. So that could, I'm not saying that's a hobby. Reading is a reading, but you can just go out there, basically kill two birds with one stone. You're active in nature, but also you're taking information in, whether you want to take that information in. But it could be anything. It could be literally poems, it could be someone's journal, whatever it is, go for it. My tip would probably be like, take your time off, like literally, like book time off. Like I think a lot of people don't do it, especially recently. Like I think they're just like, I'm at home, I've gone on holidays. Because I think previously a lot of people associate time off with, I'm going to be away from this country. So now people don't want to take that time off, because it's like, actually, I'm at home anyway. Like, I don't want to lie to anyone, be like, oh, I'm going to take time off. So I think people should be taking time off. And that's also including with me. Like I'm kind of giving myself this advice, because I just haven't taken time off like a lot in like the last 2.5 years or so. But that's just because like where we are, where I am in terms of like business and etc. But I'm also not an exception to that rule. It's more of like advice to myself here, basically. So I think, yeah, that's definitely another one, which is, taking time off at work, which is underrated. It's obvious, but it's also underrated, because most people recently have not done that.
Yeah. And I think, we touched on this in the past, but it's such a powerful thing to claim your mornings. For some, I know some parents or whatever, you might have to claim other time, but if you can claim your mornings, you start your day really good. It's something that I'm starting now that we got the news of, somewhat when things are going to start moving back to normal.
Yeah.
It's because I've been working so hard with my clients and creating routines, right? Like routines that serve them, that makes them feel good, like their perfect morning routine, however short or long that is. So now I'm in the process of like, right, how are you going to keep this happening when things go back to normal? Because we have to learn that we need to be adaptable in keeping these routines. They might change slightly, but it's the same as, how am I going to keep working on my health if lockdowns happens? Exactly. It's the same thing. Like, how can I keep momentum with the things I know I should be doing to keep me feeling good? And it's the same going out of this. Last time we were in lockdown, a lot of people might have struggled to keep the good stuff that they learned in the lockdown, all their routines, and then all of a sudden they just disregarded them, and then go like, oh, actually, I thought that would stick with me, but it didn't. So now the question is like, how are you going to make it stick with you, the good stuff, whilst going back into your normal work life or social life? And that is a big question I think everyone should be thinking about now, because you want to ensure that you install the level of importance to your life now, not when it's coming out of it. Like you need to have that so strong into why you want to keep having a good morning, or whatever it is, so that you can hold on to that and keep doing it. Because life goes back to normal and you're going to forget about it. And then all of a sudden you start dealing with other kinds of stresses. So yeah, because now I think everyone's like idolizing that lockdown is going to come off. It's like, life is still going to be fucking stressful. Let's just keep it real, like
100%.
Yeah, so we can't just think that the glory is coming. It's like, no, no, you make the glory, regardless of the situation, make the glory. And wherever that is for you, keep it, work on it, savor it, make it important. That's it.
What do you know what this reminds you of? You know when so you know when it was so bad. Well, I guess it wasn't so bad, but even previously there was loads of stresses for most people, right? Like even check-ins. I remember like people were like, "Oh, I'm so stressed about this." It's almost like you know when I can relate to, let's say, sports and football. If a player hasn't played for such a long time, they just remember his good side, but his last 5 games could have been really, really bad. But he's not played in a year, so they just remember his good side. Like we need him, we need him, we need him. It's the same thing in this current situation. Everyone's idolizing, as you mentioned, idolizing that whole lockdown period where they're like, I can't wait to be over. Obviously, gym's opening up in a couple of months' time. And then it's that whole June 21st date when like nightclubs open. Everyone's just like, yes, 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 yes. I personally cannot wait for this. But and then also you compare it to like work. By August, September, of this year, they could say, look, we want everyone back at offices, right? That's going to cause again another. By December, everyone's going to be sick and tired. Everyone's going to be like, oh, I need that Christmas break off because, oh, that travel killed me.
Yeah, the
Three
commute,
hours of
right?
traveling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah. Like
commute.
that's what killed people slowly anyway. Like it was just that whole commute. And I remember when I was doing like, so online work, everyone was like, "Oh, you're so lucky working from home." And I'm like, "It's not too bad," but at the same time, I wouldn't mind a one-off routine or off routine kind of thing going into like central, etc. But and then everyone now is kind of in the middle of like some people are like, "I'm loving working from home," some people are not. But let's talk about like to wrap up. Obviously, the pod. It's obviously the announcement. Um, I know you're obviously in Sweden, but what's your thoughts on it right now? Firstly, and obviously, I predicted, like last 2020 pod that we'll have more lockdowns in 2021. So this could be like a starting, like a cascading effect, basically. But yeah, what's your thoughts on it? And do you think life will then go back into quote unquote normality going forward?
I think personally it's going to take a long time before things go back to normal.
Mm,
I think people are probably fooling themselves to think that by just opening up the thing is they're opening up because the economy needs it, right? People are still going to die,
yeah,
probably at the same rates. There's still going to be face masks. There's still going to be, there's going to be not a level of normality for a very long time, I think. And it's the sad truth. But I think if we can prepare for that, yet still be very grateful for everything that's happening and that we are able to open up an economy, we still have to take the responsibility of going, I still probably need to be careful. I still probably need to wash my hands, bring the alcohol
sanitizer.
gel,
Yeah,
right? And you actually keep installing these things as well. Like life doesn't just go back ever, I think. And I think there will be forever a little bit of a hole for us to reflect and think about, which is like me sounding very pessimistic, but I think it's a good thing. Like I think
yeah,
this was great for humankind of stopping and going, what are we doing, right? I hope that people don't travel as much as they used to. I mean, I love traveling, but I definitely think more about, nature and where I buy my products from and like all of these things, because actually the world we're recovering. Like now we're going on a whole different tangent, but like the
yeah.
world obviously is healing. So I hope that people can like keep some of the good stuff of like not doing too much traveling and stuff like that, yet really feel grateful that we're going to open up again and feel connected in a whole different way again, and then keep working on that connection, because people are going to go back to being bitter and not say hi, and like it goes quick. It's going to go
Yeah,
super quick. People are going to be like, yeah, I'm just going to hug everyone, it's going to be amazing and hippie and like no, because in like a month's time that will be your new status quo, and you won't feel different towards it, and
that's
that's
so
just
true.
so.
Yeah,
I think just keep the reflection of like the importance of all of this, as we open up, and then obviously enjoy it, like enjoy the opening. But uh, yeah, I
yeah.
don't know
Don't
what
go
I don't know what I
crazy.
feel about it. But I'm happy because obviously now with all of the news, the good thing about having dates is that people see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that it gives people hope. And I feel like hopelessness has been a recurring theme the last few months. Um, so at least to give people hope and some like they can keep going through this, because it's still not over. Like you're still gonna be in lockdown for a while. Uh, but at least now you have some some light, which is good.
That's what I think you touched on it just there, right there. Like, everyone's now got like a deadline.
Yeah.
To like, okay, look, now we know what's going on in terms of, okay, gyms are opening. We know April the 12th is the date. We know when we can potentially travel again. We know when weddings can happen again. So a lot of people are seeing that happen. And I think, like, I know this week, a lot of people's mood have been different. Just in check-ins, they're like, oh my God, I personally cannot wait for this, which is good. And like I said, we don't be too pessimistic about it, and we want to be honest though. And I think that's one thing what we do here at the Fitness Podcast is we'll always be a bit raw and honest with you guys, because ultimately, we'll make predictions, and then I don't want it to be right. For example, with lockdowns as well, I personally do believe that it could still backfire, especially if when it comes down to the whole nightclubs situation. Like, if things go a bit crazy in that scenario, like, I actually think it could go haywire once again, and then we're back in again into the winter, because again it will head back into the winter, and it's another lockdown. And I think it just it's the yo-yo basically, and we don't want to yo-yo. We talk a lot about that, like when it comes down to your food, when it comes down to fitness in general, you want to avoid the yo-yo. So we don't know obviously what's going to happen, but like you said, we can take precautions, especially when it comes down to work. I reckon it'll be like, what do you think will happen with work? Do you think more people will be told, look, you can work from home now, or will it be you need to come to the office? And that's one thing that does fascinate me actually.
I mean, right now, I don't know how it's going to be, but right now in Sweden, what a lot of people do, they do like alternative days. So it's never
Yeah.
a full office. Some people come Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and some people come like maybe Thursday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or something like that. And yeah, I mean, but we don't really have a after work sort of lifestyle in Sweden, as huge as in the UK anyway. So yeah, but then the thing, like, who knows, because then summer comes and people loosen up, people want to party a bit more, people become more open, they want to socialize. So I don't know, like they're actually talking now about more restrictions in Sweden.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but never to the point of a UK lockdown, because they can't legally do that in Sweden. So this is why there was never a lockdown, by the way, because there are
From day
laws.
one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So I don't know, like it's a hard thing to predict, but I just think, take it as it comes, basically be open-minded, and don't take it for granted, and then do your part. That's what that's what I would say, like, do your part to be good and prevent, and not do unnecessary things, and then just hope for the best and make the best of the situation. We have to leverage this today, because we can't work with anything than what we have today, really. So yeah.
Very, very true. And then lastly, just I'm gonna quick tip is to make sure when it comes down to burnout and stress as well, support your actual, that with food, like the right amount of food, like proper food, actual nutritious food, right? You don't want to start like, yeah, let me have alcohol, or let me start having this, and let me go into other vices, whether it's like cakes, chocolates, etc. Because think of yourself as a Ferrari, effectively. You're not going to start giving it the worst fuel possible the longer it goes into the journey, right? Just doesn't make sense. So that's probably my last like bit of tidbit, basically.
Yeah.
Any final words from you, Em?
Yeah, I would say talk to people.
Yep.
Don't suffer in silence. That's what I've been doing the last few weeks. I've literally just booked in so many phone calls, because that's all I could be doing. But then I go to the opposite way. I'm like, how can I help you? Because I think the best way of helping yourself is like feeling better and feeling good is actually to help others, to reach out to others, and maybe ask if you can help them in one way or another, or just have a conversation. So that's what I've been doing. I've been having loads of conversations with people. So like, don't
Yeah.
suffer in silence, because you don't have to. People care. um
That's
that would be
cool.
my last one. So
100%. So yeah, we'll be back next week. That was episode 19, officially recorded. So we'll be with you tomorrow morning, or by the time you listen to this, already your morning, and you already listened to it. So perfect. And yeah, we'll be back next week for episode 20.
yeah,
Big 20 as
don't
well.
forget to rate, subscribe, share, all of these things, because we do appreciate it. We want more people to hear the realness of the trio. So
Thank
thank
you.
you guys.